If you've ever believed that the gods saved Skyrim from the dragons, you've been lied to. I've walked the 7,000 steps and read the etched tablets myself. Every word feels like gospel. But when you listen to Paarthurnax, the dragon who was actually there, the truth is far more complicated and far less divine.
Yes, there were a few of us that rebelled against Alduin's Thu'um, his tyranny. We aided the humans in his overthrow.
Notice what's missing here. No mention of kind, no divine mission, just a choice made by mortals and dragons alike. Let's just examine the official narrative. At the heart of Skyrim's lore is a grand religious tale that the gods themselves ended the Dragon War by granting humanity the voice. Nordic legend and imperial doctrine credit Akatosh and Kine with this divine mercy, claiming the Dragonborn carries the dragon blood of Akatosh himself. The Greybeards repeat this constantly.
The voice was a gift of the goddess Kinnereth at the dawn of time. She gave mortals the ability to speak as dragons do. Although this gift has often been misused, the only true use of the voice is for the worship and glory of the gods. You have received the ability to shout directly from Akatosh.
This story is literally carved in stone along the 7,000 steps. Kine called on Paarthurnax, who pitied man. Together they taught men to use the voice. The message? Without the god's grace, mortals would have remained helpless. It's uplifting, it's inspiring, and it's politically perfect for both the temple and the empire. But here's the twist that changes everything. When we actually meet the dragon who lived it, we hear a completely different story. Think about it. If you were fighting for your life against immortal dragons, would you wait for divine intervention? Or would you grab any weapon, any ally you could find? The evidence points to something far more remarkable than just divine charity. It reveals a rebellion born of mortal desperation and draconic conscience. As we journey deeper into Skyrim's forgotten history, we'll discover how the truth of the Dragon War was sanitized to serve those in power. And the real story? It's far more inspiring than any myth. Picture yourself in the Merithic era. Wooden homes burning around you, the sky darkened by wings. Your village elder kneeling before a massive dragon offering your family as tribute. Where are the gods in this moment? This was life under Alduin, firstborn of Akatosh, who crowned himself lord over dragonkind and mortals alike. The dragon cult demanded worship, built temples, and sacrificed dissenters. Ancient Nordic carvings don't describe him as merciful. Instead, they call him a world eater, a devourer of the dead, whose hunger for power knew no bounds.
You do not even know our tongue, do you? Such arrogance, to dare take for yourself the name of Nova.
And during this reign of terror, where exactly was Akatosh? The divine father of dragonkind watched his firstborn terrorize creation and did nothing. Kine, supposedly the protector of mankind, allowed her people to be incinerated. Shor remained silent in Shovengard, while his followers suffered. Do you really still believe the gods were carefully guiding history, or does it seem more like mortals were abandoned to survive on their own? The rebellion didn't begin as a holy crusade, but as a desperate last stand. Man who had worshipped them rebelled, the old song says. Imagine standing against these monsters with nothing but iron weapons and courage. Early revolts were massacred. The etched tablets themselves even admit the dragons only shouted them down and broke their hearts.
Dragons aren't just coming back. They're coming back to life. They weren't gone somewhere for all these years. They were dead, killed off centuries ago by my predecessors.
What kind of a divine plan requires the near extinction of an entire people before help even arrives? And this brings us to the first crack in the official narrative. If Kine truly orchestrated mankind's salvation, why wait until they were almost wiped out? The historical record points to something far more complex, an unexpected rebellion from within the dragon's own ranks.
Once we bring him down, I promise, I will have his head.
You do not understand. Alduin cannot be slain like a lesser dragon. He is beyond our strength. Which is why I brought the Elder Scroll.
That desperate admission from Feldir reveals something crucial. Even when mortals finally gained power, the gods offered no solution for defeating Alduin himself. What came next would change history forever, but it wasn't part of any divine plan. Anyone who's completed the main quest probably remembers this moment, standing atop the throat of the world as Paarthurnax reveals his true identity, an ancient dragon who once served as Alduin's lieutenant. According to the etched tablets, we're supposed to believe that Kain called on Paarthurnax, who pitied man, and together they taught men to use the voice. But when we finally meet him, does Paarthurnax credit Kain for his decision? Listen carefully.
Yes. There were a few of us that rebelled against Alduin's thu'um, his tyranny. We aided the humans in his overthrow. But they did not trust us, ni Ov. Their inner counsels were kept hidden from us. I was far from here on the day of Alduin's downfall, but all Dove felt the sundering of time itself.
We rebelled. Not Kain commanded me, not I followed divine will. He describes a choice made by dragons who could no longer stomach their brother's cruelty. Can you imagine the courage that took to betray not just your kind, but your elder brother?
Alduin had flown far from the path of right action in his pachlok, in the arrogance of his power.
This changes everything about the narrative. Rather than mortals receiving divine charity, we see something more profound. A dragon made by Akatosh himself choosing compassion over loyalty. It's almost Promethean. A divine being stealing fire from the gods to give to mortals. And the teaching wasn't easy. The voice wasn't simply granted like magic. It required brutal training, years of practice, and countless sacrifices. Even with Paarthurnax's help, only a handful of heroes like Hakon, Feldir, and Gormlaith mastered enough shouts to challenge Alduin directly.
Without training, you have already taken the first steps towards projecting your voice into a thu'um, a shout.
He will come. He cannot ignore our defiance. And why should he fear us, even now?
We've blooded him well. 4 of his kin have fallen to my blade alone this day.
But none have yet stood against Alduin himself. Galthor, Sori, Birkir.
Feel the pride in that boast. These weren't humble servants of the divine, they were warriors who seized power through blood and determination. And here's something the Greybeards never mention. These rebels didn't blindly trust their draconic ally. Paarthurnax admits,
Their inner counsels were kept hidden from us. I was far from here on the day of Alduin's downfall.
even in alliance, the Nords kept secrets. They knew survival depended on themselves alone, and what they planned next went beyond anything the gods had conceived. What happens when mortals facing an immortal enemy realize even the voice isn't enough? You're about to witness the most extraordinary act of defiance in Tamriel's history, one the Temple would rather you forget. Imagine standing atop the throat of the world during the Dragon War. The rebellion has claimed victories, but Alduin himself remains invincible. Divine intervention hasn't come, and no god has offered a way to defeat the World Eater. So what did our ancestors do? Something unprecedented. They created a shout the gods never imagined. Paarthurnax's revelation shakes the very foundation of Nord religious doctrine.
I never heard it used. Kogan. It was the first thu'um created solely by mortals. It was said to force a dragon to experience the concept of mortality. A truly von Mindoran, incomprehensible idea to the immortal Dove.
Let that sink in. The most powerful weapon against Alduin wasn't gifted from above, it was forged from mortal suffering. Dragonrend. Jor Za Frul compressed all human anguish, fear, and defiance into 3 syllables that could force immortality to taste death. Have you ever wondered why the Greybeards refused to teach you this shout?
I cannot teach it to you, because I do not know it. It is called Dragonrend, but its words of power are unknown to us. We do not regret this loss. Dragonrend holds no place within the way of the voice. But not Dragonrend. The knowledge of that shout was lost in the time before history began. Perhaps only its creators ever knew it, but I am not the one to speak of it to you. It was created by those who had lived under the unimaginable cruelty of Alduin's dragon cult. Their whole lives were consumed with hatred for dragons, and they poured all their anger and hatred into this shout. When you learn a shout, you take it into your very being. In a sense, you become the shout. In order to learn and use this shout, you will be taking this evil into yourself.
Because it embodies everything their philosophy rejects. Rage against the divine order, mortal will imposing itself on the cosmos. When Alduin finally faced the heroes, something unprecedented happened. For the first time in history, the World Eater felt fear.
If I die today, it will not be in terror. You feel fear for the first time, Worm. I see it in your eyes.
Just imagine that moment, the tyrant who had reigned unchallenged for centuries, suddenly feeling vulnerable. This wasn't divine judgment, this was mortals rising to the level of gods through their own ingenuity. But even grounded by Dragonrend, Alduin proved nearly unstoppable, killing Gormlaith and shrugging off their attacks. With defeat looming, Feldir made a choice that defied not just Alduin, but time itself.
Hold Alduin on the wing! Sister Hawk, grant us your sacred breath to make this contract heard. Begone, World Eater! By words with older bones than your own, we break your perch on this age and send you out! You are banished! Count you out of all our endings unto the last! You are banished!
Worked. Did it.
Yes, the World Eater is gone. May the spirits have mercy on our souls.
The Elder Scroll, a power beyond even the Aedra. Feldir's desperate gambit tore open time itself, casting Alduin forward into the future. This wasn't devotion to the Nine, it was mortals seizing cosmic forces the gods themselves feared to touch. Even Paarthurnax, their teacher, had warned against it. This is the moment that shatters the myth completely. The heroes won not through divine favor, but by breaking rules the gods themselves had established. They couldn't kill Alduin, so they cheated time itself. What does this tell us about this prophecy of the Dragonborn? It wasn't foresight. This was the consequence of mortals ripping a hole in time. They didn't fulfill destiny, they created destiny. And now the question of our own journey in Skyrim. Would Alduin return in the Fourth Era? Would truth finally emerge? Or would the old myths repeat themselves once more? Try and remember your first dragon soul absorption at the Western Watchtower. The guards backing away in awe. Dragonborn, they whispered. The summoning that thundered from High Hrothgar. In that moment, I bet it felt a bit like destiny, like the gods themselves had chosen you specifically. And that's exactly what the established religion wants you to believe. But Skyrim isn't just telling a hero's journey, it's asking us to question the very nature of destiny. Think about your last playthrough. Did you obediently follow the path laid before you, or did you forge your own way through Skyrim, making choices no prophecy could predict? This is where the game subtly challenges everything we've been taught. Paarthurnax doesn't treat us as Akatosh's instrument, he asks us the most important question in the entire game. Every choice we make as the Dragonborn answers this very question. Empire or Stormcloaks, Blades or Greybeards. These aren't actions of a divine puppet, rather these are choices of someone writing their own story. And when we finally face Alduin and Sovngarde, where are the gods? Shor is conspicuously absent. Akatosh doesn't intervene. It's us and the ancient heroes, the same mortals who defied Alduin centuries before. The final battle is won through mortal courage, not through divine intervention. And when it's over, listen to how Soon describes your victory.
This was a mighty deed. The doom of Alduin encompassed at last, and cleansed his Sovngarde of his evil snare. They will sing of this battle in Shor's Hall forever.
Credit goes to the warriors, not to divine will. Even Paarthurnax frames it as a moral victory.
You did what was necessary. Alduin had flown far from the path of right action in his Pachlok, in the arrogance of his power.
By the end of our journey, we've unwittingly exposed the great lie at the heart of Nord religion. The gods didn't save humanity, humanity saved itself. And perhaps even more telling, we followed in the footsteps of Tiber Septim, who proved that mortals can rise to divinity through their own actions. The Greybeards insist that true mastery of the voice can only be achieved in the glory of the gods. But our entire quest has demonstrated the opposite. True mastery comes from necessity, courage, and the will to act when even the gods stand aside. So what does this mean for us as the player and for the people of Tamriel? We began this journey questioning a very simple claim, that the voice was a divine gift that saved humanity. What we've uncovered is far more profound, a pattern of mortal triumph sanitized into religious doctrine. Dragon War wasn't won through divine favor, but through 3 extraordinary acts of mortal will. A dragon who chose conscience over loyalty, mortals who forged a weapon from their own suffering, and heroes willing to break time itself rather than accept defeat. These inconvenient truths were gradually smoothed over. But why? Because religion and empires need neat narratives. They need grateful subjects who believe the gods favor the current order. The messy reality, which is that mortals seized power rather than receiving it as charity, threatens hierarchies built on divine right. Think about what that means for your own character. Are you Akatosh's chosen instrument, or someone who seized a power that was always rightfully yours? When you absorb a dragon soul, are you fulfilling divine will, or claiming your place in a cosmic cycle that transcends even the gods? Paarthurnax offers us the most profound insight of all.
If you can see your destiny clearly, your sight is clearer than mine. Dahman, remember, Alduin also follows his destiny as he sees it. But I bow before your certainty. In a way, I envy you. The curse of much knowledge is often indecision.
Our actions have consequences beyond any divine plan. We shape our destiny rather than merely fulfilling it. Remember his famous question, what is better, to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort? Applied to our journey, is it better to be chosen by the gods or to rise through your own courage and determination? Skyrim's answer seems pretty clear. The cult of the Dragonborn that legitimized the Septim Empire was itself a rewriting of history, casting mortal achievement as divine mandate to justify rule. So the next time you're in Tamriel playing through Skyrim's main quest, listen closely to what characters actually say, not what religious traditions claim they did. You'll hear a story not of divine salvation, but of mortals who refused to wait for gods to save them, who instead seized the tools of their own oppressors and forged them into weapons of liberation. The dragons bowing to you at the throat of the world aren't acknowledging Akatosh as champion, they're recognizing a mortal who did what even the gods could not. So, the real truth behind Skyrim's biggest religious lie is this. The gods didn't make men great. Men made themselves great. And perhaps that's the most inspiring story of all. Thanks so much for watching, I greatly appreciate it. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, and maybe you should go watch this video over here that's about the Halo franchise and how the Covenant's great journey was a complete lie.